September 15th, 1986, Leicester Square, London. The autumn rain slicks the pavements of London's West End, turning the neon lights into blurred halos as Cheryl Bentoff, known to the lonely man beside her only as Cindy, the bubbly American tourist from Florida, links her arm through his. At 28, with sun-bleached blonde hair, a radiant smile, and an effortless charm that makes strangers open up within minutes, she laughs at Mordechai Vanunu's latest story about his travels. He's 31, slight build, dark eyes burning with a mix of defiance and desperation, his Israeli accent softened by months in exile. They met weeks ago in a chance encounter at a Greek restaurant near his flat. He, the disillusioned nuclear technician fleeing Damona's secrets. She, the carefree sister of a non-existent pilot, visiting Europe on a whim. Vanunu leans closer under the shared umbrella, his voice dropping as they dodge puddles. "Cindy, you won't believe what I've seen. What they're hiding at that plant, it's not just power, it's bombs, dozens of them." His words carry the weight of betrayal, the conviction of a man who believes exposing Israel's nuclear arsenal to the world will force peace, prevent catastrophe. Cheryl listens intently, her green eyes wide with feigned shock, hand squeezing his arm reassuringly. Inside, her training holds her steady. The midrasha drills in Tel Aviv, the psychological profiles, the knowledge that this moment is the culmination of careful cultivation. The emotional stakes are visceral, immediate. Vanunu isn't just a whistleblower. He's a traitor in Israel's eyes, a man whose revelations to the Sunday Times could shatter the nation's policy of nuclear ambiguity, the deliberate vagueness that has kept enemies guessing since the 1960s. In a region where Arab states outnumber and outarm Israel, where memories of the Holocaust linger like smoke, that opacity is survival. Prime Minister Shimon Peres, briefed daily on the unfolding crisis, demands action. Silence Vanunu before the story breaks, prevent the diplomatic fallout that could isolate Israel globally. Cheryl, real name classified, born in Pennsylvania to Jewish parents, Aliyah at 18, IDF service, then Mossad recruitment for her flawless English and natural allure, knows the human cost intimately. She's far from home, from her husband Ofer, also in the agency, from the life she might have had without this calling. The operation demands she cross lines no man could. Seduce trust, exploit loneliness, become the fantasy that lures a guarded man into vulnerability. Vanunu, isolated in London after falling out with journalists, clings to her like a lifeline. The beautiful American who listens without judgment, who makes him feel seen. They stop under the awning of a theater, rain drumming overhead. He kisses her then, tentative at first, then urgent, his hands trembling with the pent-up emotion of a man on the run. She responds warmly, calculatedly, drawing him deeper into the web. "Come away with me," she whispers, the plan unfolding as scripted. "Rome, just us. No more hiding." His eyes light up. Escape, romance, a future away from the shadows chasing him. But as they hail a cab back to his flat, Cheryl feels the tension coil. Mossad's Kidon team waits in the wings, agents in Rome ready to pounce once she delivers him. The global context presses in. Iran's revolution brewing, Iraq's Osirak reactor rising, the fragile balance where Israel's unspoken deterrent holds back annihilation. Vanunu's photos and testimony threaten to upend it all, inviting preemptive strikes or arms races. That night in his cramped Earl's Court apartment, as he shares more details over cheap wine, sketches of Damona's hidden levels, yields in the hundreds of kilotons, Cheryl commits it to memory for transmission. She encourages the Rome trip, books tickets under her cover. He trusts her completely now, the isolated traitor finding solace in her arms. By morning, as London wakes gray and wet, the trap is set. Cheryl slips out early for a sightseeing walk, meeting a courier in Hyde Park to confirm, target hooked, departing September 30th. Tel Aviv's response is swift. Teams mobilize, safe houses prepared in Italy. The decision weighs heavy. Lure him across borders where no male agent could gain such intimacy, such unguarded confession. The consequences loom. Success means silencing a threat, preserving ambiguity, Failure, exposure, scandal. The human cost, Vanunu's life altered forever, her own soul marked by the deception. As she returns to the flat, smiling brightly for the man waiting with coffee, Cheryl steels herself. Rome awaits, the city of romance turned abduction, where a woman's touch will deliver Israel's most dangerous secret back into the shadows. September 30th, 1986. Leonardo da Vinci Airport, Rome. The Alitalia flight from Heathrow touches down under a clear Italian sky, the cabin filling with the chatter of tourists excited for pasta and ruins. Cheryl Bentov, still Cindy to the man holding her hand, steps off the plane with Vanunu, her smile bright and carefree, carry-on bag slung over one shoulder. He's relaxed now, almost boyish in his excitement, carrying a small backpack with his Dimona photographs and notes tucked safely inside. "Rome with you," he murmurs as they queue for passports. "It's like a dream." She squeezes his fingers, the gesture warm, practiced, while her eyes scan the terminal for the subtle signs. The Mossad spotters in the crowd, blending as businessmen or lovers on holiday. They clear customs without issue, her American passport flawless, his Israeli one raising no flags yet. A taxi whisks them into the city, past ancient walls and fountains, to a modest hotel in Trastevere that Cindy booked on a whim. The room overlooks a quiet cobblestone street, double bed, balcony with vines climbing the railing. Vanunu sets down his bag, pulls her close, the romance of the eternal city sweeping him away. She responds, letting the moment linger, buying time while the team outside confirms positions. That evening, they wander the narrow alleys, sharing gelato under the glow of street lamps. He talks freely now, about the moral burden of Dimona, the hypocrisy of Israel's undeclared arsenal while preaching peace, the hope that exposure will force disarmament. Cheryl listens, nodding, asking just enough to keep him opening up. "You're brave," she says softly, and he believes her, the loneliness of his exile dissolving in her affection. Back at the hotel, as night deepens and the city hums below, the intimacy escalates. She's crossed this line before in training simulations, but reality is sharper. The vulnerability of touch, the trust in his eyes as he whispers secrets in the dark. She guides the conversation back to details: plutonium production rates, warhead designs, the underground levels at Dimona. He shares more, eager to impress the woman who sees him as a hero, not a traitor. By morning, October 1st, the trap tightens. Cheryl suggests a day by the sea. "Let's get out of the city, just us." Vanunu agrees eagerly. They take a train to the coast, but she steers him toward a rented apartment near the beach, claiming a friend's place for privacy. The location is Mossad-controlled, isolated, soundproofed, with a keyed-on team waiting in adjacent rooms. The afternoon unfolds lazily. Wine on the terrace, laughter, the sound of waves. Vanunu, lulled by the romance and isolation, grows careless. He shows her the backpack's contents again, spreading photos on the table, explaining yields and triggers. Cheryl memorizes layouts, nods in awe. As dusk falls, she excuses herself to freshen up, slipping into the bathroom to signal through a pre-arranged knock on the wall. The team moves swiftly. 3 agents burst in, strong, silent, professional. Vanunu's shock lasts seconds, a chloroform rag over his mouth, restraints, a gag. He struggles briefly, eyes locking on Cheryl in betrayal as realization dawns. She stands aside, face composed, the honey trap complete. No words needed. The pain in his gaze says everything. They bundle him into a van, sedated for the journey to a waiting boat at the marina. Cheryl follows in a separate car, the role of Cindy discarded like a costume. The yacht slips into the Mediterranean under cover of night, heading for Israel. Vanunu, bound below deck, wakes to the rocking waves and the faces of his captors. His own countrymen come to reclaim their secret. By October 5th, he's in an Ashkelon prison, the photographs seized, the Sunday Times story delayed indefinitely under Israeli pressure. The abduction sparks international outrage. Britain protests the use of its soil. Italy investigates the Rome disappearance. But Mossad's operation succeeds. Ambiguity preserved. The whistleblower silenced. Cheryl returns to Tel Aviv quietly, debriefed in a coastal safe house. The success is undeniable. Vanunu tried in secret, sentenced to 18 years in isolation. But the personal toll surfaces in the quiet moments. The intimacy, the trust built and shattered, the man's broken eyes in that final second. She saved the nation's deterrent, prevented a cascade of diplomatic crises, but the deception leaves scars no training prepares for. As the yacht faded into the night, Rome's lights behind them, Cheryl stood on deck watching the wake. The sea was calm, but inside her, the storm had only begun. October 6, 1986. Ashkelon Prison, southern Israel. The heavy steel door clangs shut behind Mordechai Vanunu, echoing down the concrete corridor like a final judgment. He's disoriented, wrists raw from restraints, the sedative still fogging his mind as guards march him to a solitary cell deep in the facility's isolation wing. The journey from the yacht, rough seas, hooded transfer, the silent drive inland, feels like a nightmare he can't wake from. In the harsh fluorescent light, reality crashes in. Cindy, the woman whose touch had been his escape, was the lure. The betrayal cuts deeper than any interrogation could. Vanunu collapses onto the narrow bunk, the cell bare except for a thin mattress and a stainless steel toilet. No windows, no sounds but the distant drip of water, and his own ragged breathing. He replays the Rome apartment, the wine, the laughter, her green eyes promising a future, now twisted into horror. "How could I be so stupid?" he mutters, pounding a fist against the wall. The guards outside ignore it. They've seen this before. Back in Tel Aviv, Cheryl Bentov sits in a debriefing room overlooking the sea, the waves a mocking reminder of the yacht's escape. The handlers, stern men in civilian clothes, spread Vanunu's seized materials across the table. Rolls of film, handwritten notes, diagrams of Damona's hidden reprocessing plant. The evidence is damning. Proof of an arsenal far larger than the world suspected. Yields in the megaton range. "You did it," her commander says, voice gruff with rare praise. The story dies with him. But Cheryl's eyes are distant, fixed on the horizon. The success is absolute. The Sunday Times article delayed. British and U.S. pressure deflected. Israel's nuclear ambiguity intact. Yet the victory tastes ash. In the quiet after the team disperses, she drives home to the small apartment she shares with Ofer, her husband, a fellow operative who understood the mission's demands without jealousy. He greets her with a hug, but she pulls away gently, heading to the shower to scrub away the lingering scent of Rome, of Vanunu's cologne. The water runs hot, but the chill inside persists. She's crossed the line agents whisper about, the intimate deception that blurs enemy and human. Vanunu wasn't a terrorist. He was a conflicted idealist, believing exposure would save lives. Her role turned his vulnerability into a cage. October 7th brings the first headlines. Italian police investigate the mysterious disappearance of an Israeli tourist in Rome. British tabloids speculate on a honey trap spy. Mossad's cover holds. No traces left. The apartment wiped clean. Perez, in cabinet meetings, breathes relief. The deterrent remains opaque. No arms race triggered. No invitations for preemptive strikes from neighbors. Vanunu's isolation begins in earnest. Days blur into weeks. Interrogations probing for accomplices. For how much he revealed before the snatch. He holds firm at first, defiant. But solitude erodes resolve. Letters smuggled out later will speak of despair, of Cindy's face haunting his dreams. The trial, held in secret for security reasons, commences in early 1987. Evidence from the abduction, photos, testimony seals his fate. Treason, 18 years. Cheryl testifies behind screens, voice disguised, never facing him. The human cost crystallizes in those moments. The man she lured, now broken. His cause silenced. Back home, she throws herself into routine. Training new recruits, desk analysis, anything to drown the echoes. Ofer supports silently, but the marriage strains under the unspoken weight. By spring 1987, the world moves on. Vanunu becomes a cause célèbre for anti-nuclear activists, a villain in Israel. Cheryl watches from afar as protests gather outside the prison, banners demanding his release. She feels no triumph, only the quiet erosion of certainty. The mission preserved a nation's edge, but at what price to her own? 3 years stretch ahead, Vanunu in solitary until 1998, emerging changed, vocal but contained. Cheryl fades deeper into the agency, her role in the operation classified forever. The woman who went where no man could, who turned affection into abduction, carries the memory like a hidden scar. In the evenings, walking Tel Aviv's beaches alone, she stares at the sea that brought him home in chains. The waves offer no answers, only the endless rhythm of secrets kept and lives altered. March 1987, Jerusalem District Court secret session. The courtroom is stripped bare. No public gallery, no cameras, only a handful of cleared officials behind reinforced glass. Mordechai Vanunu sits in the defendant's box, thinner now after months in isolation, his dark hair longer, eyes defiant, but shadowed by the ordeal. The charges are read in a monotone: aggravated espionage, treason, aiding the enemy. The evidence, his own photographs, notes, the testimony from Rome, lays bare Israel's nuclear secrets for the closed record. Cheryl Bentov testifies from behind a screen, her voice electronically altered, face hidden. She recounts the meetings in London, the conversations, the trip to Rome, clinical, factual, stripped of emotion. Vanunu's gaze burns through the barrier. She feels it without seeing. When the prosecutor asks about the intimacy, she answers flatly, "Necessary to gain trust." The words hang heavy, a reminder of the line crossed. Vanunu interrupts once, shouting in Hebrew, "She lied. It was all a trap." The judge silences him, but the outburst echoes in Cheryl's mind long after. The trial concludes swiftly, guilty on all counts. 18 years, most in solitary. Vanunu is led away, head high, but Cheryl knows the isolation will break even the strongest. She leaves the courthouse through a side exit, the Jerusalem spring air sharp with pine. No congratulations, no debrief, just a nod from her handler in a waiting car. The operation is closed, success logged in classified files. Back in Tel Aviv, life resumes its rhythm. Cheryl returns to active duty, training new female recruits in the art of legends, how to build trust, how to wield charm as a weapon. She teaches with authority born of experience, but in private moments the doubts surface. Ofer notices the distance. The nights she wakes gasping from dreams of Rome's balcony, Vanunu's accusing eyes. Their marriage, once a partnership of shared secrets, strains under the unspoken fracture. By 1988, the international fallout lingers. Anti-nuclear groups adopt Vanunu as a martyr, petitions circulating, Nobel nominations proposed. Israel weathers the storm, diplomatic pressure from allies, condemnation from adversaries. But the ambiguity holds. No arms race erupts. The deterrent remains veiled. Cheryl reads the reports with detached pride, but the human element persists. Letters Vanunu smuggles out, describing the cell's silence, the loss of sanity. The years roll forward. Cheryl rises in the agency, overseeing European operations, her skills honed sharper. But the Vanunu file follows her, a benchmark of what women can achieve where men cannot, the honey trap that succeeded where force failed. She mentors younger agents, warning of the cost. The closeness changes you. You carry them afterward. In 1998, Vanunu's solitary ends, transferred to general population. News clips show him older, bearded, still unrepentant. Cheryl watches from afar, a mix of resolve and regret. The secrets he tried to expose remain buried, Israel's edge intact. By the new millennium, Cheryl retires quietly, the agency granting her a civilian life with Ofer. They travel, Europe, avoiding Rome, seeking normalcy. But the past intrudes in unexpected ways, a chance encounter with a nuclear activist who mentions Vanunu's cause, stirring old ghosts. In quiet evenings on their balcony overlooking the sea, Cheryl reflects on the decision that defined her career. The willingness to become the lure, to exploit a man's loneliness for the greater need. The consequences ripple still: a man imprisoned, a nation protected, an agent forever altered. The operation's legacy endures in Mossad doctrine, women as the unseen edge, going where brute force cannot. But for Cheryl, it's personal. The memory of a kiss in London, a betrayal in Rome, the price of duty paid in pieces of the soul. April 2004. Ashkelon prison gates, Israel. The heavy iron doors swing open under a blazing spring sun, cameras flashing from the scrum of journalists gathered beyond the barrier. Mordechai Vanunu steps out at last, after 18 years, most spent in a 2-by-3-meter cell, the silence broken only by his own voice echoing off concrete walls. He's 49 now, hair graying, face lined deeper than time alone could carve, but his eyes still burn with that same defiant fire. He raises a hand in a V sign to the crowd, shouts in English, "I am proud of what I did. Israel must give up its nuclear weapons." The world watches again. Protests in Europe, headlines reviving the old scandal, activists hailing him as a hero of peace. But in Israel, the reception is colder. Restrictions imposed. No foreign press for years, no discussion of nuclear matters, constant surveillance. Vanunu walks free in body but chained by the secrets he tried to unleash. Cheryl Bentov, long retired from active service, watches the footage from her quiet home in a Tel Aviv suburb. The television screen flickers with his gaunt figure, the familiar voice stirring memories she thought buried. She's in her late 40s now, hair touched with silver, the lines around her eyes earned from decades of shadows. Ofer sits beside her, hand on hers, sensing the storm without words. They divorced years ago, the mission's aftermath too heavy for even shared duty to bear, but remain close, bound by understanding no outsider could grasp. Vanunu's release reopens old wounds. Interviews follow, books, documentaries. He speaks of the honey trap, of Cindy the American who betrayed him, painting her as the seductress who stole his freedom. Cheryl never responds publicly. Her identity remains classified, protected layers deep. But privately, the accusations sting. She wasn't a femme fatale from fiction. She was a patriot doing what no man could, gaining the trust of a guarded, lonely man through the only door open to her. In the years since, Cheryl has lived quietly, consulting for the agency on recruitment, mentoring young women entering the field, warning them of the invisible scars. She travels sometimes, Greece, avoiding Italy, seeking solace in anonymous places. The operation's success endures. Israel's nuclear posture still ambiguous, the deterrent unchallenged, no cascade of proliferation sparked by Vanunu's revelations. The Sunday Times story, published belatedly in 1986 after heavy redactions, caused ripples, but no waves. Vanunu settles in Jerusalem under restrictions, finding faith in Christianity, speaking out whenever allowed. He marries later, adopts a daughter, but the surveillance shadows him always. In 2007, rearrested for violating parole by contacting foreigners, more time inside. The cycle feels endless to Cheryl, who follows from afar. By 2010, she writes a private memoir, never for publication, pages locked in a safe, grappling with the ethics. Was the deception justified? The intimacy a necessary evil? She concludes yes, for the nation's survival in a hostile world. But the human cost lingers. Vanunu's suffering, his broken trust, mirrors fractures in her own life. Relationships strained, a child never had, the constant question of what normalcy might have been. In her later years, Cheryl volunteers with Holocaust education, speaking to youth about survival, resilience, the thin line between defense and excess. She never mentions Rome, never reveals her role. The young listeners see a poised woman with kind eyes. They can't imagine the balcony in Trastevere, the kiss that sealed a fate. Vanunu lives on, restricted but vocal into the 2020s, a symbol for some, a cautionary tale for others. Cheryl, in quiet reflection, honors the mission's necessity while carrying its weight. The woman who went where no man could, into the heart of betrayal for the sake of secrecy, fades into anonymity, her story one of duty's deepest shadows. The sea outside her window rolls eternal, washing secrets ashore and carrying others away. In the end, both hunter and hunted paid the price for a nation's unspoken power.